Hello, it's Grandpa again. Thank you again for tuning in and for checking on the old man and seeing what he has to say. I am continually encouraged by the numbers of you who continue to write your comments about this podcast. And I'm hoping that you'll pay particular attention to this one today because it's really about our government. Actually, it's about two governments: the government of the United States of America and the government of Israel, waging war in the name of the people. In the case of the United States, Trump is waging war in the name of we, the people. And together with Netanyahu, these are two madmen waging war, basically criminals, international criminals, waging war as a distraction from their criminal past, that either of them, when the wars cease, will have to face criminal prostitution in their respective countries rather. Now, this war has been waged against Iran, even as the president's representatives were reaching a contract with Iran to cease their production of uranium and to agree that they would not have a nuclear weapon. And at the time of that negotiation, if you can call it a negotiation, Trump then decided to wage war, to drop bombs on people, to drop bombs on little school children, 175 school children killed by our munitions. That's on us. That's not just on Trump. That's on us because we, the people, allow that to happen. We allow the Republican elected officials in Congress to abdicate their responsibility because only Congress can declare war. Trump cannot declare war. This is an undeclared, unlawful, inhuman war against Iran, who did not pose an imminent threat to the United States of America. We are only in this war because Netanyahu convinced President Trump that they could disarm the Iranian government and change the regime from what was currently the Ayatollah Khomeini to another. They succeeded in killing the majority of the regime, but what followed? An Ayatollah even more hardline than the previous one. It seems that we didn't learn from Iraq and Afghanistan. Of course, Trump is the most unintelligent president we have ever had. He doesn't read. I'm not sure that he has a learning disability, but from the way he speaks, one would gather that there are some cognitive issues that he's dealing with. But back to the war. Congress has only declared two wars, World War II and World War I. President Truman attempted to get Congress to declare war against the North Koreans and the Chinese, but they refused because they said that North Korea and the Chinese did not pose an imminent threat to this country. And so he had to go to the United Nations and the Security Council and ask that they declare this conflict in Korea a police action, not a war, but a police action. And that's the way that we're supposed to do it. Even George W. Bush went before the Congress and, based on faulty evidence, sold the Congress in declaring war against Afghanistan, because Afghanistan had posed an imminent threat. They had killed United States citizens on United States of American soil. No such situation had occurred in the case of Iran. And so we're at war with Iran. People are dying. And what bothers me most is the lackadaisical attitude that this administration has toward the killing of women, children, toward the killing of our own soldiers, airmen. It is unreasonable, unconscionable that a president who had 5 deferments would say to the tankers going through the Strait of Hormuz, show some guts, go through that narrow strait. And what do you think happened when they went through that narrow strait? The tankers were fired upon. People were killed. There are mines in that strait. I passed through the Strait of Hormuz on a world cruise from Oman on the way to the Mediterranean. It's a very narrow strait and very easily controlled by Iran. And so any ships going through that strait risk being completely destroyed. And that's what this president wants to do, ordering 5,000 Marines and 3,500 paratroopers to go over there in some kind of a ground invasion with no batteries or no regiments on land. It would be a suicide mission for 5,000 Marines and 3,500 paratroopers. Casualties would be unbelievably high. If we have a paradrop, is it going to be at night? If it's at night, the Iranian army, which totals some 600,000, could easily pick our troopers out of the air. If it's during the day, makes an even clearer target. So where is the sense in a paradrop? But that's what happens when you have people waging war who've never been in war. Trump says that he can end this war, even though he had 5 deferments because of bone spurs. And he says he can end this war because he can feel it in his bones. Is he feel it again in those bone spurs? Those fictitious, fake bone spurs that because of his privilege, he got a medical uh, doctor to fake a condition of bone spurs so he wouldn't have to serve. That's what happens when you get a communications TV personality as the Secretary of Defense who wants to dispense with the rules of engagement. Rules of engagement like rescuing people who are in trouble, who pose no threat. A person who says, kill them all, and we killed all of the people in a small boat in the Caribbean as they were clinging to that boat for life. That is murder. And those murders are being done in the name of we, the people. So I object. And I want everyone in the call of this voice to know that there is something that we must do. This is no longer a warring about some political activity. It's no longer a clarion call to duty to stand up. This is a call of desperation. That if we do not corral this madman, I have no doubt whatsoever that he would use nuclear arms to gain his advantage. So what do? March 28th is coming up this weekend, a day in which millions of people are anticipating, protesting a no kings weekend to say to President Trump and to Prime Minister Netanyahu, we do not support this war. We do not want you to send our sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, aunts, uncles, children to a suicide mission. We demand that our elected officials come together and get rid of this horrible president that we have masquerading as our leader. So those of you who are near cities where there are indivisible protests, if you're within 20, 25 miles, please go. If not, do something on your own wherever you are. It would be wonderful if we could have 10, 15 million people expressing their outrage at this horrible condition that we've placed the Iranian people in. Can you imagine what would happen if Trump had gone through with his boast that he was going to destroy the energy infrastructure in Iran, starting with the largest facility? They would have been in complete darkness. You ever been in complete darkness? In Korea, we had no lights. And when the lights went out on the base, we were in complete darkness. no street lights, no moonlight, no starlight, complete darkness. Can you imagine what 93 million people would be doing with no energy, no lights? That's what President Trump was threatening. That's madness. That's why I say we have two madmen waging war. And more than that, these are two madmen who wage war against their own people for protesting. Now, protest is endemic to this United States of American society. This country was born of protest. Protest against King George, against the crown. People masquerading as Native Americans, going to Boston Harbor and throwing the tea overboard to show their disgust and their despicable discontent against an even more despicable ruler. So we've got to do something. I like the politician who's running for the Senate in Texas, James Tallarico, I think his name is. He said it's time within his Christian upbringing to turn over some tables like Jesus did in the temple. It's time to start good trouble like John Lewis suggests that we do. In other words, there is no other option but for us to take action. And that means action toward a peace, not just the cessation of war, not just the stopping of the bombing, not just, see, peace is not the absence of war. It's not the absence of conflict. It's not the absence of humane treatment of other people. Peace is a spirit of peoplehood, of recognizing that you and the other are the same beings who share this planet, and that you deserve the same thing as I, because I cannot exist without you, and you cannot exist without me. And so when we strive for peace, we should be striving not just to end the war, but to arrive at a state where those who were at war recognize the peoplehood of the other that they have been killing. I hope, as one of the few last things that I would love to see, I hope that I would be able to witness tribunals that at the end of the Trump administration, whether it is in November of 2026, when the Democrats could take over the House and the Senate and therefore impeach and hopefully imprison President Trump for his war crimes, for his fraudulent behavior, for his raping of children, yes, for his pedophilia. Because all of this war that he is doing is simply a distraction from the Epstein files. And the more that he attempts to cover up the Epstein files, the more apparent it becomes that he, along with other powerful men, are guilty of raping young girls, young women, and trafficking them for sex. And at some point, we have to take action to do something about that. And so I'm imploring you to stand up, to lift your voice, to cry out against this horrific war that's taking place, and demand that the hostilities cease, that we stop sending bombs to Israel, because it's apparent that they want to do to Iran what they've done to Gaza, bombing schools, hospitals, residences. Netanyahu is mad, and he drags our mad president along with him. So while you're out there, remember to take care of yourself. And remember also that we need to take care of each other. Goodbye.